starring Bela Day in...
But, Ma, that's my favorite movie. Oh, well, all right. But don't you spend too much time in front of that TV, do you hear me? Yes, Ma. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another episode of my podcast, But Ma, that's my favorite movie, and I am your host, B. Lede. So, let me go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I have been gone for some weeks now, and just to be a little honest for a second, I've had some things come up. It wasn't intentional to take that long of a break because I've been super consistent with this podcast and I've been very adamant on being consistent because this is the first thing that I've done in a while that I've been, super passionate about. I've had a clear idea of what I want to do for the most part. There's some things I change up here and there, but this is generally a thought out idea and I actually have executed it. I guess that's the best way to say it. Like I said, that break wasn't intentional, but it happened. And, I've had a change of things happening. One situation that happened and, in December I moved. So I've noticed that I have taken on a lot more responsibilities than I did in the previous place I stayed because I did move in December. And so everything has changed. And so I've noticed since I have a lot more on my plate, it's kind of changed up the motivation. But don't get me wrong, not like in a bad way, but it's just because I'm having to juggle other things. And I'm trying to gather my thoughts here so they make sense. And normally when I'm kind of going off the dome, they don't. But yeah, so I'm juggling some things, had something happen. And so I mentally just had to go on break. I mean, I kind of had no choice. I had a bit of a creative block. And so now I'm back and I am ready to continue and going forth because what really matters is not when you get knocked down, but how you get back up. And so I'm not going to punish myself for taking a break or for, stopping. I am going to just keep going and I'm going to try to continue to self-motivate myself that no matter what the results look like, no matter what the numbers look like, and no matter how I feel at any point, I'm going to keep going and I'm just not going to stop. So, without further ado, let's get into this episode. Now, if you are new to this podcast, I normally don't start it like that, but I just wanted to address my absence a little bit. If you're new to this podcast, what I do is introduce movies. We may critique them a little, but that's not what it's all about. We normally have two different styles of episodes. And in today's episode, the style is going to be theme, right? So what we do is I have a theme for the episode and I will talk about two different movies. And so the plot of each of these movies will be centered around the subject of what this episode is about. And what I do is I'll give an introduction to what the movie is about, and I pretty much give you some of the details of the beginning of the movie up until like the major plot point. And so today's episode is titled, But Ma, That's My Favorite HouseGuest Movie. Now, I have to say this, do not play with But Ma, That's My Favorite Movie podcast when it comes to creating unique themes here, okay? You cannot touch me on that. That is one thing that I pride myself in is I know how to create, okay? I may be a small creator, but I feel like I come up with some pretty grand things, and that's just me tooting my horn for a little bit. Toot, toot. All right, so Before we do get into the movies we're going to talk about today, I do want to let you know about our social media. So if you aren't already, please follow our social media pages where you will be able to get a sneak peek about upcoming episodes and also see what movies we'll be discussing in those episodes. And what I do in order to kind of make that fun, instead of just like, hey, these are the movies we're going to talk about, I actually make a game of it called Guess That Theme / movie. And pretty much I will post a visual with the stills from the movie, and you just pretty much, guess what type of theme it's going to be, or you can say what movie you think I'm going to be talking about. Either one works. It's just all in fun. So where you can find us is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I do have a website, which is butmawthat'smyfavoritemovie.com. And on my site, you can actually write reviews about the podcast. You are also able to give me movie or theme suggestions. And all of the handles and link to the website will be in the show notes / description below. So you could definitely check that out. And then make sure, if you're loving the episodes, the content that you're hearing, please do not be afraid to shout us out by tagging any of our social media pages or by giving us a review on the Apple Podcast site or on the website. And then also, if you do that, I'll actually give you a shout out on the episode, which is super cool. So if you want to get shouted out, you know exactly what to do. All right, so let's get into this theme today. So we're going to be talking about movies that pretty much show the ugly side of having house guests. In one movie, we have where the characters absolutely end up hating their house guests. And then we have another movie where basically they completely love their house guests and he actually changes their lives for the better. So I guess not all of them are showing the ugly side. Just one is showing the ugly side. So I guess the good and bad of house guests. Yeah, you could say that. So yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. So let's get into the first movie, Lights, Camera, Action. How would you murder someone? If you have a question, Los Angeles, then you should just ask someone else. Because I swear to God, I don't know anymore. What am I talking about? House guests. House guests from hell. Ladies and gentlemen, you listen to me. No, you get that snack later. You listen to me. Lock your doors. Don't answer the phone. If you have to leave the country, then leave the country. But don't let them in. They may look like your mother, your father, your sister, your friend, but they're not. They're slimy. They're cockroaches. If the world was to suffer a nuclear holocaust, the only surviving life form would be house guests. Ah! Okay, so that quote is by the character Jesse, who's played by Kirstie Alley in Madhouse. And I actually sometimes, depending on the movie, I'll say one quote, but sometimes there's always a second one I want to say as well. And so she does have another one that I like more, but I felt like that one was more longer and a little bit more, elaborate versus this one, but I love this one too. So let me go on with the next quote. Lights, camera, action. Now I want you to get your gold digging lily white ass out of my house. I swear that is one of the most prominent lines that I remember from this movie. Because hello everyone, this is Bila Day. Sorry to interrupt this episode, but I just wanted to let you know that you were only listening to a preview. So if you would like to listen to the rest of this episode, then you can definitely go to the website, butmawthat'smyfavoritemovie.com, or you can go directly to any of these platforms for the full episode. We are available on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Castbox. Please don't hesitate to follow the podcast on any of those platforms so that you can be notified anytime a new episode is available. If you didn't know, our primary release day is every Thursday, but be on the lookout for bonus content as well. Now, if you've listened to the But Ma, That's My Favorite Movie podcast before, that's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So if you have a friend that loves movies like we do, then definitely go ahead and share this podcast with them. And if you're a new listener and you do end up enjoying the podcast, well, then you go ahead and share with a friend too. Also, don't forget to like any of our social media pages so that you can also get updates and regular information about the podcast and about any of the episodes that are coming up. The social media sites that we have a presence on are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And also, if you want to leave a review, whether constructive or positive, we'd appreciate that too. All right, go ahead and get over to one of the other platforms so we can finish getting into the rest of these movies.